What's good with the YouTube with Conflicts Perspective? It's your boy Flacco coming live and direct with my co-host, Big Senor Rojo, with a little bit of energy or a whole lot of energy. It doesn't matter. We're here. We're ready to do this. So in today's, man, we found an interesting article that was written back in 1993. And the significant reason why we're going to read this article, right, is this is a time era when the whole social structure of the prison gangs started to migrate and take control of the streets. Was around the early 90s. Everything pre-existing Norte Sur back in the 80s and 70s, it never translated to prison politics as far as the streets. Both these organizations used to take care of their own business. This is around the same time period, around in the early 90s is when the MA started to employ a lot of the Sureño gang members out there trying to fuel a truce, excuse my language, to take control of their areas. Years later, the NF did the same thing. So we're going to get right to it, man. This was an article written at the time when this was occurring, and then we're going to elaborate a little further on it.
Yeah, like Flacco says about the trees.
The trees.
Hey, this, like you said, man, this is from back in September 28th of 1993, and this is actually from the LA Times. This is the title. It's a long title. Mexican Mafia's Impact on Gangs Questions. Violence. Officials say they are skeptical of the prison gang's attempt to impose a no drive-by shooting rule, but they also welcome any effort that'll lessen the bloodshed. And this article is by Jesse Katz and Robert Lopez. Despite a drop in gang warfare, police and government officials said Monday that they are putting little faith in the Mexican Mafia's attempt to impose a no drive-by shooting rule on hundreds of Latino street gangs, contending that any reduction in bloodshed will probably be temporary and not necessarily attributable to the prison gang's influence. Shows how little they know. While applauding any lessening of violence, authorities were also circumspect about the Mexican Mafia's ability to control tens of thousands of Latino gang members from behind bars, an effort disclosed Sunday in the Times. Although some older gang members have an appreciation for the Mexican Mafia's deadly wrath, officials said, there are too many younger members with disdain for all authority. The Mexican Mafia is a business. Street gangs are a lifestyle, and there's a big difference, said Los Angeles County Sheriff Sergeant Wes McBride, a veteran of the department's anti-gang unit. The Mexican Mafia tends to be structured with an identified leadership and codified rules of conduct. Street gangs come purely from emotion. They rebel against any authority, even amongst their own. Authorities expressed concern that the Mexican Mafia is trying to expand its criminal enterprise beyond the penal system, but said they had no effective way of cracking down on the underground syndicate, which has been handing down its edict to thousands of gang members in recent months at a series of meetings across Southern California. Man, I'm having a tongue-tying problem today too, bro.
I'm rubbing off on you, bro.
Man, I'm having trouble.
But hey,
bear with me,
viewers,
ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, the viewers, you guys are following what they're saying. Meetings throughout Southern California, and this was in the early 90s. So
Correct.
That's going to be key right here.
All right, we're going to try again. Do some tongue exercises. All right. We haven't been all that effective in dealing with the gang violence over the years as it is, says Barry J. Nidorf, head of the Los Angeles County Probation Department. If the Mexican Mafia has begun to unify the gangs, he said, it's probably too late to do anything about it anyway. Mike Genelin, head of the district attorney's hardcore gang division, added, I'm concerned with stopping the violence on a permanent basis. The only way to do that is attack the causes that lead to gang activity in the first place and not get sidetracked over something else that might or might not happen in the future. Mayor Richard Riordan's office had no comment. A spokesman for Los Angeles Police Chief Willie L. Williams said only the reduction in violence was welcome. As it relates to any other pressures or issues involving any organized crime or gang activities, we certainly would not be making any kind of public comment, Commander David Gaskin says. Rabbi Gary Greenbaum, president of the Los Angeles Police Commission, said he planned to question Williams about the Mexican Mafia's edict at today's regularly scheduled commission meeting. I want to know what it means and how it should be handled in terms of capitalizing on an opportunity for some peace. without playing into the hands of convicted felons, Greenbaum said. Under its mandate, the Mexican Mafia, usually referred to as La M, Spanish for the letter M, has told gang members that they can still attack rivals but have to approach them face to face. The indiscriminate nature of drive-bys, the gangs have been told, needlessly hurts their community. It is widely believed that the prison gang will try to enforce that edict behind bars. Jail and prison officials have documented several stabbings of gang members who are believed to have committed drive-by shootings or rejected the MA's authority. It is also possible, officials say, that the Mexican Mafia will try to turn the street gangs against those who disobey that order. Although it is difficult to measure the impact of the MA's threat, it has coincided with the only respite. It has coincided with the only respite after years of record-setting death counts. Latino gang killings in communities paroled by the sheriff's department are down about 15%, while gang homicides in some Los Angeles Police Department divisions are down as much as 50% from this time last year. The difference is tangible, said Father Tom Smolik, a Jesuit priest at Dolores Mission, which is surrounded by 8 gangs from the Pico Aliso housing project. I don't know if I'd call it a truce. Let's just say it's an acknowledgement that the differences we have aren't worth shooting one another over. That is the message also coming from 2 Latino gangs based in southern Los Angeles that held a news conference attended by about 100 gang members at Ross Snyder Park to announce a peace treaty of their own. The accord between the Florencia and 38th Street gangs is the result of talks that began 1 to 1.5 years ago and is not related to the MA's no drive-by order, said Harry Warren, a crisis intervention worker for Community Youth Gang Services, which has been involved in these negotiations between the warring gangs. But Warren conceded that the Mexican Mafia's edict may be having an impact on some gang members' willingness to lay down their arms. Like other anti-gang activists, he said he would welcome the help of La M or anyone else with influence over the gangs. My hat's off to anyone willing to work for peace, Warren said. Hopefully we can all join hands. On the east side, however, there are signs of resistance to the Mexican Mafia's order. A week after the MA drew more than 1,000 gang members to a summit in Elysian Park, an estimated 500 gang members from the notorious Mafia barrios met Sunday at Belvedere Park, reportedly to unite against the Mexican Mafia. The Mafia neighborhoods, which have a long and contentious history with the MA, object to what gang members perceive as a prison gang scheme to muscle in on their narcotics trafficking in their community. Mafia is the one that's fighting against the MA because the MA is using so-called gang drive-by shooting thing as an excuse to collect money from all the different neighborhoods, said a Mafia gang member who contacted the Times anonymously. Mafia is not going for that. Very interesting.
Interesting article, Mal. I was doing some research, man. When I came across this article, I was actually looking up for the history of Mafia against the MA, and this article came up, and I thought, man, you know what? This touches on every key component of how the transition to change that occurred in the early '90s. You know, and looking at it from a historical perspective, right, of what we're knowledgeable of, Mexican Mafia, the NF. You know, during the time frame of the '70s and '80s, they used to do their own bidding. You know what I'm saying? They took care of their own work. They did their own holidays. They did their own killings out there in the streets. That has since changed. And this was the first step, I think the Mexican Mafia was the first step of employing Sureño gang members under their umbrella. Now, they were always under the umbrella of the MA, but more so only behind the prison walls. This is when they started to transition to change and said, look, you guys are under our umbrella. You guys are under our direction. And they're going to enforce taxation on all these hoods to go out there and tax in these neighborhoods because, right? If you look through both factions, the NF and MA, they were crippled in the '80s by major RICO indictments, and they both went underground and started to recruit. But both these organizations only have so many members. The MA, I think, even may have less members than the NF at that time. So when you don't have members that are paroling, therefore you have nobody out there doing your beating, taking care of things out there on the streets. It's very common that you could have an NF regiment out there anywhere in Northern California where you don't actually have an NF member running that regiment.
Right.
So this is where the MA started to step into, where they have their camaradas out there from these neighborhoods that are doing their bidding. And this is where the interesting point of where they have recruited certain MA members from certain hoods. Therefore, they control that neighborhood. All taxation that their own neighborhood does gets kicked on up to them. And so this is the first step. You know what I mean? And Maravilla, as it discussed, wasn't going for the taxation. You know what I mean? Some of the Maravilla has a long, extensive history. They've had Maravilla MA members. They've had Maravilla NF members. Some of the killings, man, if you go into Gabe Morales' book, The History of Nuestra Familia, some of those killings that occurred that kicked off a lot of the conflict that later happened on 1968, Philip Neri and all that, a lot of these individuals had Maravilla ties, believe it or not.
Right.
And there was a few Maravilla MA members that helped, right, helped give the direction of the NF, believe it or not. You know what I'm saying? I did an interview on stories written by a current prisoner with Gabe, and Gabe actually acknowledged it was a good article, man. So, you know, you got to look at all these parts, you got to look at them in steps of history, where they have came from then till now. Both factions, if you want to think about it, in the early 80s and 90s, they had no influences over their groups. Now, all these factions have complete control 29 years later.
Yeah. Hey, you know, it's a trip too, man, is you know, I've talked to a couple, you know, a lot of people aren't going to like this, but I've talked to a couple active Sureños, and they had told me about the upcoming possible no more blue on blue as well, you know, and that'll be a huge step down there too, considering the extreme amounts of manpower that them guys have. You know, if that went into effect, the reduction in violence would be outstanding. It'd be astronomical. You know, the level, you know, it would plummet. You know what I'm saying?
You started to see a little bit of that, man, when you started to have the race wars out there in Southern California.
Yeah.
You need an opposition for these gangs to flourish out there in the communities. You need oppositions. You need a recruiting tool.
Yep.
So therefore, you started to see a lot of Sureños on Africa, which they've always gone at it. You know what I'm saying? But you started to have them go into Florence, Normandy, and all those different areas, man, where were traditionally African communities, as well as Compton and Watts and all that. There's always been Hispanics there. Don't get me wrong. In Sureño neighborhoods, they've expanded and taken over these areas, though.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Without an opposition, you don't have no existence of a gang. So if you're going to get rid of the blue on blue, who are they going to fight? They're going to start fighting other groups, right? And things have changed from the 80s and 90s, right? As far as within the MA and the control mechanism that they have out there in their communities. They're plugged in with the right people across the border now. Where 30 years ago, you know what I mean, they had some connections, but not like they do today.
Yeah.
Africa, okay, because those people across the border, they'll deal with anybody when it comes to this.
Right.
So a lot of African brothers had those established contacts out there to where they didn't need the Sureño neighborhoods out there. Times have changed. You know what I'm saying? Now, the one particular group down south, and we already know what we're talking about, have connections with those people over the border.
Right.
And have basically cut off the Africanos resources out there to where they have to depend upon the Southerners for their income, for the work.
Yeah.
I've talked to a few people who have broke that down for me. They go, that's why you're seeing the pimping game is starting to merge again, because they're going back to the old ways of how everybody used to make money, because the Southerners have started to establish those resources out there, which is a good thing. It's a good move. You talked about it being close to the border gives you access to everything. Yeah. Therefore, war on the streets does nobody good out there. So some of these Africano gangs are starting to step down and not trying to have conflict with the Sureño neighborhoods because they need them. It's all about this.
Yeah.
It's a business thing. They don't have the resources unless they go through the Sureño neighborhoods now.
Right.
They have sold everything up.
Yeah, you know, the Sureños, you know, they're obviously, you know, and not just the Sureños, but they're big homies. They're going to try to make that an exclusive relationship with them guys on the other side of the border just to have that monopoly. You know what I mean? They're not dumb. They'll be like, hey, only deal with us and we'll promise you this and promise you that. And, you know, them gentlemen across the border, they're going to feel a little more comfortable dealing with other people like them, similar to themselves. You know what I mean? And that's not saying that they're racist or not saying nothing stupid like that, you know, but that's just the facts of the matter. You know, they're going to talk to somebody that can communicate to them in their language. You know what I mean? With their same background, you know what I mean? That may have, you know, even family members that are common. You know what I mean? I mean, it's human nature to deal with those, with things more likely to be in common with yourselves, man. You know what I mean? So like you said, I talked about before, man, you got that relationship on that border, which is the smuggling capital of the damn world, where everything's coming through from human beings to every substance to you name it. Man, your market potential it's enormous, bro. You know, and they got a hand in all that, from new recruits to kilos to whatever.
Yeah.
They got the geography, they got that border, and that's why they're gonna always be around and be successful.
And see, this whole thing, this whole no drive-by order thing was kind of a public relation thing. You know what I'm saying? It was to get in good graces with the community, because
No
you know
doubt. Yeah.
we've done other articles where there's been interactions with those groups out there. Like we said, they do things different. I mean, who are we to judge? But if you notice,
That's a smart move, in my opinion.
that was a smart move. And what happened with that was, this is all early 90s. You know what I mean? I think they started to enforce the taxation and drive-bys. I don't know what year, but it was either 90 or 91. This is the first, this right here was a key component of change within every group, because this triggered an after effect where the NF had to do the same thing 6 years later. That's when they came out with the red on red policy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As far as Sudanos were migrating up north, there was a lot of conflict with the Northerners, and that was the same step. That's where the GUNC came after. That's where you started having rather Northerners, Norteños being taxed. We call it contributions. But we know what it is, man. You're being taxed, hey. Let's call it what it is, man. Where people started contributing, whereas years before, you know, the Silencio Huevo and Spankillo situation, you know, and skipping on them when they got indicted in that indictment back in the 90s, there was hardly any NR members involved.
Right.
There was maybe 2 or 3. And so it took the whole fold of masses out there that were supposed to be operating under the NF regiment. It took them to where San Jose was wiped out for years.
Yeah.
It took years to rebuild. And so therefore, you know, Cuete had a vision with this, man. Cuete is the one that started all this El Norte law in the revisions, man. This is when they first started to allow Northerners and NR members, one of those days,
Yeah,
to start with the regiment. So those are key changes. And ever since then, both these groups have had a control mechanism off the recruiting pool of the Norteños and Southerners. This is how they've been able to stay in business, because they realized if they just had their members out there taking care of business, they were going to be taken off the streets eventually. Because most of them end up with life. Very few end up out there in the streets staying out there.
Right.
So in order for them to control, we need to employ our foot soldiers. Therefore, without the Norteños, there'd be no NF. Without the Sureños, there'd be no MA. Those are both facts.
Yeah, I like the whole stop the drive-by stuff. I like the whole no red on red. I like all that, especially the drive-by things, because, you know, when you're moving in a vehicle, you know, at whatever rate of speed, it's really, really hard to only hit your target accurately. You know, you don't want somebody who has nothing to do with it, their daughter getting killed in her bedroom, you know, their son in the backyard playing soccer or something, getting smoked, you know. So, you know, that's a nightmare, you know, as far as publicity goes. You know what I mean? When society's, hey, these gang members killed this innocent, this old lady, this young kid, this whoever, this husband and wife, this person that's good in the community, that makes people, every time they hear your name, want to go after you all the way to the fullest. When it's a gang on gang type of thing, let them fools kill each other. But when innocent people get hit, that's a public relations nightmare. So it's a smart move, because people that ain't in the life should not be affected, period.
You know what, though? What else was a smart move was how they operate these gangs, the green lights out there. You know what I mean? Maravilla, 18th Street, all these different neighborhoods, man. I don't know what Maravilla's situation is today. I don't know. I can't speak upon it, but they've been green lighted so many times.
Yeah.
18th Street in the early 90s were green lighted. That's a fact as well. You know what I mean? Other hoods. And so what they do is when any hood doesn't comply to MA policy, they put a green light in the county jail and in prison and on the streets.
Yeah.
Therefore, it is obligated. You know what I'm saying? And the only ones who really tried to withhold that for so long was actually the Maravilla. But Maravilla is a big ass hood too. It's like, I don't know how many neighborhoods. I want to say at least 5 different neighborhoods, maybe more. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm pretty sure some of the listeners are going to be correcting us on that, man. But There's a whole lot of different Maravilla neighborhoods, man. What's your opinion on that?
They control enough area and have enough people to be able to at least on the streets they can kind of withstand that pressure a little bit. You know, of course there's going to be problems and things of that nature, but it's not like it's a little hood with 30 homies that's only one street over here in this little neighborhood. They could do damage there. Matavia is, you know, from what I understand, and I talked to an individual from Matavia actually, they got their stuff really, really sewn up really well down there, bro. So it's hard to get in, get out, not be spotted. They got, when they get to the counties and stuff, I mean, obviously they're going to have to either have their own module or not go to GP because they can't win. But on the streets, man, they held theirs down pretty good for a long time, bro.
They're kind of like the Bulldogs in a sense. I don't, like
They're
I
huge.
said,
Yeah, they're
I haven't
huge,
heard
bro.
anything recently about them. I don't know how they operate now, but I know for years, Maravilla was withholding banging that Trece for years. And to an extent that if for years, a lot of these Maravilla hoods actually used to go at it with each other, believe it or not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So this whole thing about the MA aggression against them in the taxation, I mean, to be honest with you, everything that MA member, that not the MA member, that Maravilla, the anonymous source said was true. They're trying to use a drive-by shootings as a reason to tax our neighborhoods. You know what I mean? And when a lot of grown men have been doing this for years, especially when you're from an older neighborhood and you have a little bit of power and you have someone with some influence, you're going to have those who are going to want to revolt and take a stand. Yeah. You know, you hear it. We're tax-free. You know what I'm saying? That's the agenda they used to push. But you know, this, like I said, man, this right here, man, was it caused a lot of you know, the destruction we're seeing in these communities, the unification we're seeing amongst certain gang members, and the drug trade and control that you're seeing out there in the streets, and the violence for not aligning with one of these groups is all started basically around this time frame.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of things, man, right around the time of the LA riots and the Reginald Denny thing and all that stuff back then, that there was a lot of change from that point on, man, for that next little time period right there, man, with rules on both sides, North, South, NFMA, whatever, that you know, they were trying to restructure a little bit to adjust to the times, man. And it happens every once in a while, but you know, that was huge. I remember when that no drive-by thing came out. You know what I mean? And I was like, wow, let's see how this actually turns out. Back then, I didn't have access to like Google numbers and statistics and stuff like that, you know, because I've always been like a statistical kind of dude where I want to see, you know, the numbers of policy and the effects, negative or positive. But man, you know it cut down considerably because there's a lot of people that ain't trying to go against them dudes, man.
Bro,
You know,
I'm gonna keep it 100, bro. When I went to the county jail, I went in for a drive-by shooting in '96. Right, I ended up getting, eventually I caught a slicing in there, right, and I get moved in with like Chuco and all them, right. I was scared, bro, that for the drive-by shooting I did, I was scared I was gonna get whacked when I was there, bro. I'm not even gonna lie. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
I actually told him about my case. I actually talked to Chuco about it, man, and told him, you know, I'm in here on a drive-by shooting. I shot some homeboys. You know, I mean, that's just how it is. And he broke it down. He goes, you know, you don't know any better. You know, we're getting a lot of these cases of people coming up in here for drive-bys, you know, people from Capitol Park, people from all these other hoods. They were doing a lot of shootings out in the streets, man. And this is when they really first started to get at homeboys directly. And they went about it right, though, because they told me, you know, we can't hold you accountable for something that you don't know.
exactly.
But from this point forward, I mean, you need to go out there and tell your homeboys, we're not going to accept anybody doing any red-on-red crimes out there or doing drive-by shootings. And this is before the red-on-red policy was implemented. Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking, NF at the time structure, I don't know these words, bro. I'm thinking, okay, these are the mob. This is the mafia. You know what I mean? That's just the way you think as a kid out there in the streets. You know what I mean? Yeah. He was already NF at that time, no? And you know, it was a learning experience though for me. And so once any type of these groups put out any type of policy is when you see change.
Yeah. And then just like you not knowing, man, it takes a long time for that stuff to filter out, especially back then. You know, nowadays with phones, man, you make a new rule, it's already hitting the streets in 2 minutes. You know, it's hitting other hoods in 2 minutes. Like by the end of the day, every leader of every group could damn near be informed of any new procedures, policies, edicts.
I went from having a red on red crime to fucking shortly being a Nuestra member shortly after. That's just how it works sometimes, man.
Right.
But this just goes to show what I'm trying to show to listeners, man, and for the viewers is this is how much control these groups have. If all these changes, only one group or two groups, whatever faction you align with, this is the type of control that they have within their groups. Whatever they say, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know.
Yeah. If not, bro, you're gonna have problems, dude. Straight up.
But nah, man. I mean, I was talking to someone yesterday, man, and this federal state thing. Not to get off topic with it, man, but there's been homeboys that have came into the system. You know what I mean? With directives from the feds, get found out, get hit, bro. And for them to clean up their thing, they have to do something for the state, or they get put on freeze. They come up with directives. You know what I mean? And so then they come in, they're good with the feds. Now they're no good with the feds, but they're good with the state. You know what I'm saying? And I was just talking to someone yesterday, man. I can't put out the information. I'm gonna talk to him and ask about it, man. But it was a trippy situation, man, and it had to do with Alameda County. You know what I mean? That's a lot of that their whole screening process, anytime they go anywhere, is a lot more in depth because they had certain people who were aligning with the feds and some that were aligning with the state, and it was causing a little rift. So now, I mean, it's fucking crazy nowadays, man. And I don't know if the other side, I think Tony just did a little video, man, that they're having a similar little split between the state and feds as well.
Down the way. Yeah, I heard that as well, bro.
You know what I mean?
I'll definitely be looking into that one.
Most definitely.
It's crazy, but yeah, man. Hey, good job on them though. Hey, all the drive-bys, man, that's gonna, take away the loss of innocent life, and that's important to me. Even when I was in full motion doing my thing to the fullest, I've always been, don't involve people that aren't in the life. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care what race you are. If you're Asian and you're in the life, you're subject. If you're black, if you're white, it doesn't matter. But if you're not involved, man, you shouldn't have to deal with what we got going on. You broke up.
I got a question.
What's up?
Being that these the Sudanos, they're a lot deeper than Norteños up north, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when they forced the red on red, right, it was a little bit easier to contain and do so, even though there's still a little bit of red on red, but they have decided a little bit more recently, right? But you mentioned something about potential blue on blue. I've seen the wheelers, I've seen the kites. I know exactly what you're talking about, man. There has been talks about promoting that, as well as stopping the violence between North and South up north, that the MA and the NF are on the same page in the state. My question is this, though. The Sudanos are a little bit different. They're more deeper. There's a lot more neighborhoods. There's a lot more gangs. Do you think that there'll be a lot more hoods that are going to revolt if this is implemented and mandated out there on the streets?
I wouldn't necessarily say revolt, but I would say that they're going to try to be more discreet and handle their business without getting caught, because I don't think the business that between some of them people are going to be able to go away overnight. You know what I mean? So I think there's just going to be way more discretion, but it'll take a long time to make that policy implemented fully.
Or this is what I think is going to happen. You come in for one of those crimes, you're going to have to pay this. That's what they do with the red on red.
Yeah. Oh, really?
They find people about 10. If you come in with a red on red, they're finding people a certain amount of money now to clear their name. Bro.
Hey, I believe you, man. I'm not surprised.
I know someone that went through that, bro. You know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking that they may do the same thing. You came in for like a blue on blue crime. It's just another way to tax them.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense to me, bro. You're probably spot on with your thought process right there.
That's man's genius.
Yeah. Hey, more rule violations, more income.
As always, this is just a convict's perspective. This is just our views, man. We're breaking things down. Like I said, we like peace. We like anything to promote things. If there's change out there in the streets that's going to promote peace, we're all for it. You know what I mean? Up north or up south, man. Just stay away from gangs, guys. Yeah,
you don't got to worry about paying fines or getting killed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, man, we appreciate you, man. It's Tuesday. Hopefully tonight at 6:30, we're going to have an amazing guest, man. Something that we've never done before. So keep an eye out, man.
Cross your fingers if we have it.
Hey, it'll be a groundbreaker. I promise you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, man, we'll get back to you. Rojo, Flacco, we're out.